Hey guys, Declan here. I'm just about to start a new marathon training block. It's 16 weeks to Dublin Marathon, and it's probably the worst I've felt starting a marathon training block. So I wanted to chronicle or journal the progress of the training, just to sort of see how it goes, how it progresses. It's also something for myself just to look back on to see where I was sort of 4 months ago in the future whenever I'm doing the marathon. So why am I in the worst, probably in the worst possible shape I've been in a long time. I originally started running about 8 years ago and progressively built up to a marathon distance, and do you know what, it was great, and I was always marathon fit, able to run a marathon, maybe not race a marathon, but able to run a marathon. And the start of this year, the plan originally was to train quite hard for a spring marathon. The aim was to do Blackpool Marathon and hopefully hit a PB or get close to a PB with regards to that there. Just for everybody else who doesn't know, my PB's 3:24 something, okay? And ideally I would like to be a bit closer to the 3:15, if not slightly below it. I do believe that's within my own capabilities, with the amount of time that I can train, the genetics that I have, and my own personal age as well. Okay, so that's the goal. That's where I want to be. Under 3:24. Closer to 3:15 if at all possible. But yeah, start of this year, training was going pretty well. Built up a good bit of base mileage. I'd been doing a lot of heart rate training, and was feeling good until February. And unfortunately I caught COVID. So I managed to avoid it for 2 years. It's been in here in the UK, but it eventually got me, and it was grand. But do you know what? At the time, I didn't think I'd been affected too much. I was actually able to train through it. I have a treadmill at home, so while I was in isolation, I was able to do some small runs, sort of 5k, 10k, and then towards the end of the isolation period, I felt really good, and I was doing sort of 12-mile run, and then also did a 14-mile run on the treadmill. Whenever I come out of isolation, I just sort of wanted to test the legs and see where they were at, and decided to go do a longer run. That longer run turned into a 28-mile run, I believe, in just over 4.5 hours. So there was an element of me thinking, okay, I've still got it. I haven't lost anything. COVID hasn't affected me too much. That feeling was short-lived, to be honest with you. The long runs, the endurance, the slow, easy pace stuff, absolutely fine. Could do no issues whatsoever. I've never really lost that endurance. But the shorter, sharper tempo work, I just couldn't do it. I just, for whatever reason, either the legs didn't have it, or I couldn't get enough oxygen into the body. The heart rate was spiking very quickly into tempos, and it just wasn't feeling uncomfortable. It was feeling impossible to do. A lot of times sessions were being pulled, stopped, and turned into something completely different. So I had a little bit of a re-evaluation at the sort of end of February, start of March, to sort of see where I'm going to go with it. As a run coach myself, it's easier for me to sort of re-evaluate my goals, but it also does leave me at times not being accountable to somebody that I can change them on a whim. So maybe this chronicle, or this journal, or this maybe weekly or bi-fortnightly sort of YouTube video will hold me to accountability. People know what I'm up to, and it'll allow you to sort of have an insight into my training and what I'm up to as well. Okay, but anyway, back to what I was talking about there. Start of March, sort of middle of March, sat down and thought, okay, if I haven't got speed in the legs, there's going to be no fast marathon in April. So what I'm going to have to do here is look at other goals, other things that I want to achieve. One of those things this has sort of been on my back for quite a while, was to return to the 24-hour run in Belfast and try and hit the 100 miles. I had done this event back in 2018, and only managed to hit 82 miles. Okay, so I got a lot of things wrong at that point in time. I was quite new to ultra running, but this year I sort of, right, okay, I think if I've got endurance, let's put a bit of work into it and we'll get with that. So the training involved lots of slow, easy, endurance controlled miles. Okay, a lot of hill work, getting myself up into mountains, exploring new routes, and just really finding the love for running as well to a degree. But lots of controlled running. There was one speed session a week, and it was never anything more than 1k reps. It was generally 200s, 400s, 800s, 1k reps, and I would repeat back through that there every 4 weeks. And as I say, a lot of mountain running, a lot of exploring new trails. When I say mountain running, anybody who knows me, it's a walk through the mountains until I get to a downhill, then it's a run. So it's typical ultra mode for myself. But yeah, it was all about getting fatigue into the legs and then doing a decent long run come the weekend. So that was grand. Everything was going hunky dory. And I had a bit of a week off with regards to my main job. When was that there? At the end of June, so the end of May, start of June. And I sort of like, okay, I'm gonna go here. So end up doing 3 or 4 different mountains, having a real good time exploring new places, going up and down Donard for the first time, up and down the Lurig as well as Carntahar, all these mountains in Northern Ireland. Slieve Donard being the tallest in Northern Ireland. It's my first time ever doing it, and of course I do it as a race as well. But nice fatigued legs. That week didn't really plan much beyond a sort of 20 to 25 mile run, but an event was on with Gatehouse Events over at Barons Court up in County Tyrone. So I entered it on a whim, entered it on the Thursday night for a Saturday event. And it was a 6-hour challenge, and I say it was just really to get a bit of company for the 20-25 mile run. So I turned up to the event, had my ultra gear with me, and on the day, you know what, I felt really good. So I ran on 5k loops, done them all perfectly fine, no issues whatsoever, and came in sort of around sort of 4:30 mark for the marathon, perfect pacing for ultra running. And I thought, right, okay, if I've done a marathon, I might as well just squeeze out a 50k, get a wee bit of extra time on the feet. So I did the 50k, brilliant. And at this stage I looked around, and I don't remember seeing too many people out in the course. So I said to the race organisers, I was asking, is there many people in front of me in the 12-hour challenge? Because I was doing the 12-hour, I think I might have said 6 earlier, but it was the 12-hour challenge. But originally I'd only planned to do the 6. But yeah, the race organiser were able to confirm that there was nobody in front of me at that stage. So a little fire in my belly got lit, and I thought, you know what? I've got a chance of keeping a win here, or keeping the lead, as long as I don't let anybody pass me. So I thought, okay, let's go for this. So I ended up just keep running, keeping it nice and steady, taking on plenty of fuel, plenty of liquids, and just keeping an eye on the competitors, making sure nobody was getting close to me, and if they were, I would be able to speed up or have a wee bit extra in the legs. In the end of it, I ended up running for 11 hours and 30 something minutes and covered 59 miles and got my win. My first ever ultra win, by the way. I have won a couple of 5Ks in the past, but this is the first ever ultra win. So delighted with that there, absolutely fantastic. Great training miles, real confidence booster as well. And then the next weekend was another ultra run, which I had already planned to do, and this is why I hadn't planned to do much more than 25-30 miles, because it was a 53-mile run around Strangford Loch, which absolutely lovely day, probably the warmest day of the year in Northern Ireland at this stage. The loch itself is so unsheltered that you're just getting battered by the sun the whole way through. I ran with a very good friend of mine, Christian, from start to finish, even though I told him to run on so many times because I felt that I was having to run faster than I wanted to just to keep up. But he was really good company and encouraged me so much along that there. And in the end, we ran the 53 miles, and it was fantastic. I ended up doing it in, I think it was just over the 10-hour mark, and recorded a course PB, knocking up 45 minutes off my time from here a few years back. Okay, so I knew at this stage training had been going pretty well. I was in pretty good shape turning up to the 24-hour event, and that was 2 weeks of rest, recovery, tapering. Spent a lot of time working on the diet, Cleaned it up so much, cut out the caffeine, cut out the dairy, increased the water, lots of time spent stretching, rolling, massaging myself, time in the spa, sauna, steam room, etc. You know, there's no fitness loss or gain within that 2-week period, so the rest is required. And at the 24-hour events, you know what, I'm not going to go into much detail. It could be time for I could do a whole video on that there, but I had my plan written out. I stuck to it as best I could. The goal was to hit the 100 miles in 22 hours and 15 minutes. I ended up doing it in 22 hours 50 minutes, and then just walked out the final sort of hour and a wee bit to end up recording 104 miles. So everything went really well. Delighted with that event. Fantastic. Monkey off my back. Goal ahead. Wonderful event, by the way, run by the guys in Atlas Running. But the next day, the Monday, I was in A&E. I couldn't put weight through my ankle. I thought I'd maybe ruptured my Achilles, tore it, whatever it was. It just didn't feel right. So I had to take myself down to A&E. Well, I didn't take myself, my wife ended up driving me down. But severely bruised Achilles, probably Achilles tendonitis from the overuse, the overrunning of it. The 24-hour run's done on a real hard concrete ground. So look, I hit my goal, but unfortunately then the Achilles has been sore. So that leads me on to what I was saying in a really, really roundabout way of why I'm in the worst shape ever. 2 weeks out of running, I was told to take 6 weeks. As a massage therapist or somebody who's done a lot of, you know, advice and rehab and other people, I'm a big fan of coming back to the sport with not, you know, I call it the managed pain. If you come back to the sport with, or any sport, a 3 out of 10 is what you're looking for. So I spent 2 weeks, you know, in the steam room, in the sauna, icing, stretching, massaging, everything that you could do, mobility, and eventually got the ankle, you know, really, really loose again to the point I could move it, put weight on it, could bounce on it, etc., etc. So the first run back was a 4-mile run on the treadmill, nice and controlled, managed pain. There was a niggle in the Achilles, but it just, you know, wasn't 100% right, but it wasn't very sore either. So that was grand. So I went out the next day and ended up, last week I ended up doing 6 runs, but they were all really, really controlled and sticking to that 3 out of 10. If at any point that the pain went more than 3 out of 10 on the pain scale, I would have stopped the run, stretch, roll, ice, and go back on it. Okay, so I just don't feel as fit as I normally would coming into a marathon training block. I haven't done any speed in about 3 months, any real speed work at all. Long continuous runs have been really non-existent as well. Sunday past I did 10 miles non-stop, and I think that's the longest non-stop I've done in a long time, because everything has been really ultra training, and for me ultra training is all about slow, steady and controlled. I know other people approach it differently, but that's what works for me. That's my race strategy. So you practice what you do. Is race efficacy for myself. So yeah, I'm coming into Dublin training at 16 weeks, I believe. This is week 1. I did a mountain run yesterday, which was really fun, and I did a lovely 60 minutes easy controlled run today. And you know what, today was the first run I never felt a twinge or a niggle in the Achilles. So I do believe that I've came back, you know, with this managed pain, and I'm back to you know, being able to train hard or start the harder training again. So this week's training will involve, well, I say the easy run that I've done. Tomorrow will be a little bit of tempo work. I'll do 3 by 1.5 miles at 7:45 pace. And eventually the goal is to bring that tempo back down to around the 7:15 to 7 minute mark. But you know, 7:45 should be tempo based off the latest 5Ks that I've been doing, averaging about 22 minutes for my park run times. Okay, so guys, look, whether you watch this or don't watch this, I don't know if anybody will be interested in this other than myself. This is just going to be, it's not going to just be for me if other people are watching it. And if you do have any questions about the way I train or how I train or what I do, please send me a message or comment below. But I will go into a bit more detail with the sessions that I do, what their purpose is, how I felt they went, how I feel maybe could go better as well, and any adaptations that we make along the way too, because you have to be fluid in your running. Plans, they're very, very good to have, but life gets in the way, work gets in the way, etc. as well. Okay, guys, so I think I've rambled on enough here as an introduction video. This weekend, I'll hopefully have an 11 mile done, a few tempos, and a few other easy runs, so I'll have a bit more information to share with you. Okay, guys, look, thank you very much, and if anybody else is tuning for Dublin, or any other marathons in sort of audit time, and you want a sort of virtual partner, or you want to link up in any shape or form, follow me on Strava, let me, tag me in your training and ask me any questions you have. Alright guys, hope it all goes well. Thanks very much. Bye bye.